And we're going to move right into new business, item 6D1.
Madam Chair, this is an item involving a request by several law firms to determine the county's interest in participating in litigation against opioid manufacturers, distributors, and others associated with that problem that this country is experiencing throughout the country. We've been contacted by several firms. We've talked to several firms, and we thought we'd bring them before the board and let them present their case for why they think that you should participate in this and why they're the best qualified to do that. We've arranged them in alphabetical order, so there's no preference shown that way, and we'll let them go in that order. But I think we should probably give them about 5 minutes each to state their case and state the reasons why they think it's important for you to participate.
Thank you, sir. And I have two cards from Beam. So if you gentlemen want to come forward, Phillip Federico and Doug Beam.
Did you want to take them in alphabetically?
They numbered the cards, sir, so I just... Which would you rather do? I'm flexible.
Do it
you want to do it down the list here?
According to the agenda item.
Okay. Kruger, Dixon, Simmons, and Hanley.
I have some brochures. Can I distribute them?
You're Miss Bosch. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much for an opportunity to present to you today. Let's talk about opioid litigation and how I got here to talking to you today. My firm is a small firm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, based out of Milwaukee. We do high-stakes litigation nationwide. I have a deep history as to how we got together and how we got here. I'll try to be brief on that. Wisconsin counties reached out to us last spring and said, hey, have you guys heard about this opioid litigation that's going on that counties are pursuing? What do you think about it? We know you've done cases like this in the past. You've done class actions. Give us your opinion. And we started digging in and trying to figure out what this was all about. We very quickly learned through doing our own due diligence that there were 3 groups of firms that were pursuing this on a national level. And we started to investigate whether this was something that our counties in Wisconsin should do, and if so, which group of these national firms should they pair up with? Those firms it was based out of a Motley Rice group whose partner, Linda Singer, filed the first cases of this kind in 2014 in California and in Illinois. Then there's a group based out of West Virginia that is led now by Paul Farrell. They filed their first cases in 2017 against distributors in West Virginia. And then my co-counsel, Paul Hanley of Simmons Hanley, who's based out of New York, although his firm's based out of Alton, Illinois. He filed his first case of this type in August 2016 against Suffolk County, or for Suffolk County, New York. So we got some background on what the landscape of this case is, what these cases looked like, and then we started saying, okay, if Wisconsin's going to do this, who are we going to work with? Who do we want our counties in Wisconsin to work with? So we dug a little deeper, did more research, and we learned that although the epidemic is now impacting our nation to the extent that 50,000 people are dying every year, this, and the information that's underlying this lawsuit, stemmed way back into the 90s when our co-counsel, Paul Hanley, filed the first suit of its kind against Purdue Pharma. And through that lawsuit discovered that there was extreme conduct by the manufacturing defendants in the marketing department where they lied about the effectiveness of opioids and the use of opioids for long-term use. We decided, based on our due diligence, that it was in our best interest for Wisconsin counties to pair up with the Simmons Hanley team. We entered into that arrangement late last spring, early summer, and since then we've retained 62 Wisconsin counties that are all working with the Simmons Hanley team in pursuing opioid litigation on behalf of counties. In addition to that, we are working with almost all of the Iowa counties, counties in Indiana, Minnesota, Illinois, Missouri, Louisiana, New York, Pennsylvania, and I'm probably even missing some at this point. There are about 330 counties right now that are pursuing this in multi-district litigation that is based in the Northern District of Ohio. That is important to you because That litigation is being headed up by Judge Polster. He has already organized that litigation into the 3 co-leads that I've referenced: Paul Hanley, our co-counsel, Joe Rice of Motley Rice, and Paul Farrell, who started the distributors cases in West Virginia. In addition to those 3 co-leads, there's an executive committee of 16 attorneys. My partner, Aaron Dickinson, is one of the members of the executive committee. They will be meeting actually in about 10 minutes today, which is why she could not appear to present with you this morning. That litigation is moving quickly in the federal court. We believe that these cases belong in federal court unless there is a defendant's presence in your state. The key defendants, we believe, are the 4 main manufacturers, who are Purdue Pharma, Cephalon, Johnson & Johnson, and Endo Pharmaceuticals and their related entities. There's also cases against the 3 distributors, AmerisourceBergen, Cardinal Health, and wow, I'm going too fast. Cardinal Health, AmerisourceBergen, and McKesson Corporation. Our team has sued the distributors for the first time today. We filed our first case against the distributors. There's a variety of reasons for that I'm certainly able to discuss today or in more closed private sessions. We think that this is a very important initiative for every county to consider. We think that in a state like Florida, where we do not see any of the main defendants having a principal location here, that the case should be in federal court. We think that that is good for all of the counties because Judge Polster has made it very clear that he wants these cases to resolve, and he wants them to resolve in 2018. And I have the transcript from his last hearing and the packet of materials that I provided to you, as well as detailed lists of our experience. We currently represent about 200 counties nationwide, over 100 of which are in the multi-district litigation and federal court. The other ones are organized in mini MDLs in states like Illinois, New York, Pennsylvania. I see my time is up. I am certainly able to answer questions. I know that went very fast.
Good job. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving in alphabetical order here, we have Shakolnik. How did I do?
I think you did fantastic with
Thank
that.
you.
Hunter Shkolnick, thank you for allowing me to speak today on behalf of Napoli Shkolnick, as well as Stoll Brody and the Ferraro Law Firm from down in Miami. I also have some packets to hand out if I could.
Certainly. Thank you.
Let me start off with how we got into this litigation. I think that's very important. My firm, about 2 years ago, started looking at this from the family and the overdose victim side of this equation. And at the time, we were contacted by approximately 2,000 families across the country. We're a firm that specializes in mass tort litigation, pharmaceutical in particular. I've been, and my partners have been, leaders in some of the biggest cases in the country. We were lead counsel, sole lead counsel in such cases as the 9/11 litigation, the Fen litigation, if we're talking about drugs and the like. So people tend to come to us when there's this type of a mass problem. We looked at these cases and spent about 1.5 years trying to figure out a way to help the families. And we found out, for the most part, they were precluded from lawsuits. We saw 2,000 cases. We saw 2 possible cases that could be brought because of criminal conduct on the part of the person who actually overdoses at times. If you're buying it illegally on the street, it stops the causation chain, arguably, and we couldn't do anything. And at that point, we kept seeing the same trend. We were seeing the police, the EMS, going to people's homes, utilizing Narcan, being taken to the hospitals, being taken to the local jails, overtime, coroner costs spiking, and we quickly went to people we knew in our local county, Nassau County in New York, a fairly large, million-plus, give or take, county that has all of the usual services, one of the largest police forces in a suburban area, one of the highest paid in the country, big medical center, big coroner's office, and we started figuring out the costs associated with their losses. At that time, we identified tens of millions of dollars in losses to our fellow county, our citizens. We were retained by Nassau County. That is the county right next to Suffolk County that the Simmons Firm is handling. My firm and Paul Hanley became lead counsel in New York, representing all of the counties of the state. It's the only litigation in the country where discovery is going forward. Last week, our local state judge said you are going to get discovery from every distributor and manufacturer, and there's over 80 that we have named. We're one of the few firms that commenced litigation almost 2 years ago, naming the manufacturers, the distributors, not just the three big distributors, smaller distributors like the ones here in Florida that distributed to your counties, not just the three big ones. We also named the key opinion leaders. These are the people who were paid millions of dollars by the companies to advance this inappropriate message. There are 4 key opinion leaders that were paid in excess of $4, $5, $6 million to put out the message that the new opioids are not addictive, and that's what we trace the problem to. So at that point in time, we started meeting with counties across the countries and cities. You were nice enough, your county attorney was nice enough to meet with our office. We appreciate you bringing us back. What we bring here is a different message. Although I am on the PEC, and yes, I'm missing that phone call right now to be here. Although I'm on the PEC, the Plaintiffs' Executive Committee of the MDL, we do not believe that is the place for all cases. We have gotten exceptional results with Judge Gargiulo in New York, and we have done the same thing here. We filed for the first county in your state, your neighbor, Osceola County. Because of our approach that we want to be in state court, stay in state court, and if they try to remove us, to come back so your citizens have an opportunity to hear this case with, named in these cases, there's one other defendant that that you're probably not going to hear about. They are the pharmacists and the doctors who have been found guilty and are spending time in jail for flooding your communities. We've also named those people, the ones who are sitting in federal jail right now, serving 10 and 20-year sentences. We're naming them in the cases because we want your jurors to hear from them. How did they get the pills? How did a community pharmacy or doctor distribute millions or hundreds of thousands of pills in your community? And by naming them and speaking to them, which we are doing, we're finding out that these distributors were facilitating this. The manufacturers knew about it, not just the big ones, but the little ones as well. And they were the ones who were going to these doctors' offices in white panel trucks at 2 o'clock in the morning and handing off boxes of pills. So from our standpoint, we think this case should be filed in your county. Your community, your people should be hearing the case. And I respect Judge Polster. I've been his lead counsel, bless you, on 2 major MDLs in the past. I'm the only one who asked for him in the MDL. But I think you don't put all your eggs in one basket, and I think certain cases belong in state courts, and Florida is one of the states that deserve attention by the jurors of your county. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, we're always happy to answer them.
Thank you, sir. Scott and Scott, attorneys at law? One of the ones that won't be able to make it, sir?
I think they didn't make it, yeah.
Okay, and then the next one will be Spangler, Scheibele, Leiber, and Beam, and Romano. And Shosher, and it's a large firm.
It's a lot of different firms. It's actually
Okay.
6 law firms.
Oh, thank you.
Let me hand these out to you.
We already received that.
Oh, we did, yeah. Yeah.
So I'm Phillip Federico, and I'm leading this group of 6 law firms here. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time, unless you have questions, talking about the case, because you've heard already a fair amount about it. The one thing I will emphasize is I do think it's very important for your county to get involved. And to a certain extent, I think this is a little bit of a race, this opioid litigation. The epidemic's real. Everybody knows about it, unless you've been living in a cave. And counties have lost tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars which they're entitled to recoup. The reason I say it's a little bit of a race is there's a little bit of competition that will naturally occur. Big Pharma would like all this to be wrapped up, put in a box, put a bow on it, stick it in a closet, close the door, lock it, and move on to something else and continue business. All you have to do is look back at the tobacco litigation to see what happened. If you remember back to tobacco, the states got paid, the counties didn't. So my advice would be, it is important, there's found money that you're entitled to, and to move quickly. It's not good to be at the middle or end of this line, that's for sure. I'll tell you a little bit about our team. As I say, I'm one of the founding partners of Phillip Federico and Staten in Baltimore, and I've been practicing law for 35 years. And my history is in medical malpractice, and that's how I got my exposure to the opioid crisis. I noticed that in the late 90s, early 2000s, we were having families, and families from all neighborhoods, all socioeconomic. You know, I'd see a football player who was a scholar athlete. I'd see somebody from the inner city of Baltimore come in with an opioid addiction case or an opioid overdose case. Parents very upset, interested in suing the doctor. And many times the doctor was at fault. But as this started to evolve, and we saw more cases, and you peeled back the onion, the doctors were saying, well, hold it. I was told these drugs were okay, that I could prescribe them for chronic pain. And I was misled. The doctors were telling us they were misled by the marketers and the manufacturers. So over time, it became readily apparent that there was a true epidemic. Our firm is working with Peter Weinberger, and Peter is liaison counsel in the MDL. He is based in Cleveland, Ohio, and he has been before Judge Polster in many cases in an MDL setting before in a leadership position. And that's why he's working as liaison counsel to communicate between the judge and the executive committee. It's a very important role for him, and I think the reason he was selected was because of his longstanding history with Judge Polster. On our team, we also have Pyres and Cooley from Washington, D.C., and Diane Cooley was involved in the tobacco litigation with John Cole. John Cole was one of the two leading members of the steering committee in the tobacco litigation, and Diane was his partner. She's got extensive experience in the tobacco litigation, and again, there's a real similarity here between the opioid litigation and tobacco. I think one of the things that we bring to the table with our group of 6 firms that differentiates us maybe from some others is a heavy local presence. And in that regard, the Romano Law Firm, John Romano is a senior trial lawyer. He's been president of the FAJ. His son Eric works with him. Their firm are trial lawyers. And that's what you need in this case. You do need trial lawyers because, frankly, the biggest thing that they fear on the other side is a jury verdict. Because once there's one verdict, there are going to be many. And they don't want there to be one verdict. And John and Eric have, I will tell you, have sued Teva, Janssen, all the pharmaceuticals. They've done mass tort work, and they are prepared to pursue this case as well. We also have in our group Fonwell, Lewis, Messer, and McConaughey, and specifically David Fonville and Jim Messer. The reason that I think their involvement is important is because they were in Florida and worked on the Florida Dream Team during the tobacco litigation. So they know how to function. Because part of this case, it's not just us against Big Pharma or us against the other side. We've got to be able to work amongst ourselves once this case is resolved, if it's resolved by way of settlement, to take care of your county. You've heard people talk about there are all these counties out there. I represent all these counties. Well, I think your fiduciary obligation and our accountability and responsibility to you relates to taking care of your county. And that's why we feel having a local presence and having 3 out of our 6 firms be local is exceedingly important. Doug Beam, his son Riley, and Jessica Travis, who are here, are right in this county. They've been in this county. Doug's been in this county since he started practicing law. He's a trial lawyer. They know the ins and outs of your county. Client communication is important. Having somebody on the team that's here 24/7, we think is an important component. So I really think that our team checks all the boxes in terms of who you should have represent you in this case. And I just lastly draw your attention to page 36. That is our fee structure. Pretty self-explanatory, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The previous speaker was talking about state law, state court versus federal court. So what's the advantage of being in one or the other from your point of view?
Well, the advantage to being in state court, from my perspective, is if I'm trying a case for your county, I want to be in front of a jury of people from your county deciding the case and a judge from this county. I don't want to be in Cleveland. Okay, I think that's just common sense. It's like when I'm home in Maryland, if you say, well, you know, you've got 23 counties, what county do you want to be in? Well, I have my favorites, and I have ones that aren't. This is a good county. I would do anything and everything I could to keep the case here. However, if you do get removed, you need protection in the MDL, not only from the other side, but there are a lot of people who are going to be competing, or a lot of counties, I should say, municipalities competing for part of the pie. So I do think maybe the benefit to the MDL is an earlier resolution, maybe spend less money, but you're going to be spending our money, so I wouldn't worry about it. But I think it's nice to have both options.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Next, we have Wagstaff, Cartmel, Mather, Sharp and Tier law firms.
Yes, ma'am. Chris Schneiders on behalf of our group of law firms. I'm a partner with Wagstaff and Cartmel. We're based in Kansas City, so we have a bit of a Midwestern way. I'll try to talk a little bit slower than maybe some. But my partner, Tom Cartmel, is actually trying a case in Boston in federal court right now. It's a pharmaceutical case. He would have loved to have been here to address you all, but he couldn't make it based on that. So he sends his regrets. My partner firms, Steve Charpentier and the Charpentier Law Firm, and Steve Mayer and the Mayer Law Firm are both local law firms as well. And we've worked with them numerous times in the past. While we come from, my firm, come from an area in the middle of the country that many people term flyover, we go all over the country prosecuting cases just like this. You're not going to find any of the firms that have been presented up to this point that don't have a vast amount of experience. And frankly, I'm not going to belabor by telling you how we came into this litigation, because it's the same story for all of us. We found a need. We found people that were in danger based upon the crisis, and we represented them. Based upon that, my own firm, we actually don't just have a medical malpractice background. We actually represent numerous hospital systems and doctors within Kansas City. We're a little bit unique in that regard, because most firms that do what we do tend to either call themselves plaintiffs' firms or defense firms. There's really not a lot of crossover. With our particular firm, I defended a case 3 weeks ago in Kansas City on behalf of a defendant, and I'm chair of the discovery committee of the Zofran litigation that's centered in Boston, which is an MDL. So we don't put ourselves in that box. What it gives us, frankly, is a vast array of people that we can discuss things with regarding these types of cases, experts that we can use, people that we can intone with in a different way than some of the other law firms. They're all very good law firms that are presenting to you today, don't get me wrong, but we bring a different flavor to it. Another aspect of that, and I couldn't agree with my colleague more, is the fact that you need a firm that's going to try cases. What the defendants in cases like this fear are juries. They are people that are actually going to stand up in front of a judge and in front of a jury of peers and tell them what is going on in the case. And if you don't drive them to that point, you're not going to seek resolution. They're not going to end the litigation itself. My colleagues over here, Mr. Charpentier and Mr. Mayer, have successfully represented this very county in the past in a hotel tax bed litigation issue. They resolved it quickly, and they were able to resolve it successfully on behalf of this. They're locals. We obviously acknowledge we're not local, but we are the ones that are in that room in Ohio. And mark my words, there will be lots and lots of firms, all the firms that are here in front of you, that will be in that room. And it's extremely important to be in that room having those discussions. But the combination of being in that room and then also being willing to try the case, to confront the defendant and move forward, spend the money, spend the time, spend the resources, that's an incredibly important thing if you want to bring this to a resolution on behalf of your county. As far as reasons why I would say you should pursue it, because I understand that there may be some thoughts on both sides. I did find that Brevard County actually had the 8th most opioid-related deaths in Florida, out of all counties. 8th most. That's a significant issue for you and your county and your constituents. That's something that you want addressed. It's something you want addressed on a national level and on a state level. The reasons that you might have some of those damages that are going to come from what you do is because your constituents and the people that vote for you and that you represent, they are going to be paying for Medicaid expenses. That's a damage ascertained based